Buenas tardes from Playa de Carmen, Mexico. You know, I just wanted to do a quick video here on something that occurred to me today. For those of you that have seen my other videos and perhaps know a little bit about my personal story with cancer and things like that, there's a central theme that runs throughout all of it, and really all that we experience in the ways that I deal with the various spaces with individuals and groups and myself, is the whole learning from the experience, regardless of the experience. You know, not everything's going to be fun, but sometimes we gain from that in some way. And if nothing else, we at least gain knowledge of something that maybe we don't want to do again, or something that we do want to do again, or some other, it augments our understanding in some way because it happened. All right, and we can judge the instance of what it was as a good or bad experience, however we like. But nonetheless, if we can sort of depart from that and look at it as a learning experience, like I was suggesting, well, then you have to think about, you know, learning. And so how do we learn? We learn through experience, of course. That's first and primary way to actually experience something, regardless of what you're told. You know, sometimes there's things you might hear that inspire you to think of something, but really actually there's a difference in believing that the Eiffel Tower is there because you've seen it on TV and seen photos, and actually standing in Paris and beholding the Eiffel Tower itself. So sort of look at it like that. And so if we want to get to that actual experience part, yes, there's an enormous amount of learning that can be gained there. And you can apply it back to the way I was saying before. It might not have been a good experience, might have been a bad experience. And so in referring to the experience itself, in my own story, that is well documented elsewhere, when I was diagnosed with, you know, terminal liver cancer, that was quite a shock. And you know, when you hear things like cancer, obviously that's bad news, you know, because that means you're on your way to, you know, somewhere else, or at least it's going to change your life in some significant ways, or even end it in the way that we call it, you know, death. And so when it came time for me to figure out a way to try to assess this new situation, because I built a number of tools along the way during the years of working in psychotherapy and spirituality, you know, those intervening what would have been about 5-6 years that I was using. And so how was I going to take this? You know, it's one thing being told you're terminal and you have 3 to 6 months to live, but making huge changes and somehow making it in 2018 and then, or 17, and then finding out that it is developed into liver cancer. Now that adds another dimension. So now you're going to die twice. And so always trying to go towards that which nourished me, and what was the next best choice was the way that I, you know, did it from day one, as I've well documented elsewhere. And what I'm building to here, taking me a long time to get there, is that ultimately what happened was, shortly after I received the news that the tumors in my liver were cancerous, I had been referring to it in a couple of places, my blog and I think on Facebook, as my cancer. You know, now I'm dealing with, I quote my cancer. And I then was contacted by a friend of mine in Sweden. Jonathan Horowitz is his name. He's a very well-known, respected elder in the healing community, you could say. And he I don't exactly remember how the conversation went, the Skype conversation, but it ended up being that this was not my cancer. This was now my teacher. And so the idea of the teacher came in. And so the teacher became really the main focal thing through the next, you know, roughly 18 months until ultimately winding up in Transplant, referring to the teacher, because I then I expanded it to the entirety of everything that I had changed in my life. You know, the way that I, you know, quit using drugs and alcohol in the way that I was in 2011, you know, completely removing that from my life. And then, you know, eventually becoming vegan and all these things, and trying out various forms of psychotherapy and various forms of spiritual sort of healing. That all of that, even the ones that I thought maybe, didn't really do it for me, or I know this because I heard it from that guy. Even every bit of it, every one that I experienced, I learned from, regardless of how I felt about it, and that for that I should be grateful, and of course being grateful is a completely deep topic that we'll discuss elsewhere. But so the teacher, and so after transplant, all of a sudden I somehow made it. I did it. And the cancer was gone. I had a new liver, and the disease that had caused the cancer, or the failed liver in the first place, was gone. I was leading a clean and healthy life, and things were brand new, completely. It was as if I had no attachment to the corporate successful guy in 2011 that was one day all of a sudden given the news he had that diagnosis. And so then it became, trying to continue doing what I'd been doing the last few years leading up to that, which was helping others get through turbulent times, more or less, sharing my experience and ways that I've learned tools and things to help me through it. And that's what, led me into drug and alcohol counselor and then shamanic practitioner. But the whole idea of the teacher, and so now we're going to get to why, 4 minutes into this, we're going to now get to why the title is as it is. And that is, one day I said that cancer saved my life, right? And what I meant by that was that the teacher came into my life at that time, and the teacher really, in so many ways that I won't go into, really helped me, enabled me to help myself, however you want to say it, in looking at my experiences that way and learning from everything and going towards the next best choice, always trying to make the best choice in any kind of chaos. There's always so many choices. Which is the best? It might not feel good, but which is the best? And if you continue to do that, then maybe there's again going to be a bunch of, but there's always try to go to the best. Just try to go to the best. And when it came time for the cancer to come along, the teacher had done that. And so, in an even stronger way than before, because I was close to giving up by around 2017. It had been a long, hard road going through hepatic encephalopathy and all the other things that come along with terminal liver failure. And I'd lost everything, my career, my separation from my then wife, and moved out of the house, and so much had changed. But then when the teacher came along, when the idea of the teacher came along, and I worked with Jonathan more about this, I then, after transplant, looked at it as, the teacher, aka cancer, saved my life, because I don't know that had I not gotten the diagnosis of cancer, if I ever even would have been eligible to get a transplant, because it moved me up on the list of importance. And these are deep spaces. You can imagine, for those of you that have been through this, you know what I'm talking about. There's plenty of similar experiences. You know what I mean, when others' lives are involved, literally in your own. And so I said, cancer saved my life. And as soon as I did it, the first thing I thought of was, the person who had just lost their son or daughter or husband or wife, or them, or they were in an advanced stage of cancer where, they were, for whatever reason, beyond the hope of repair, and it was, very short time, hospice type situation, and how that might sound to them, and how harmful. No matter that it all came from a healing place, how that might not feel good to hear somebody say that. And so I never said it like that again. I've said it in the present. Well, let me rephrase. I said I never said it like that again publicly. Until now, I guess. But at least now, anybody that heard it can hopefully hear this part too and understand why I see the potential bad side of saying something like that. But their lower side. But anyway, so then all of a sudden, 2 years later, after all this is over, this part where I got transplanted, and I'm a counselor and I'm doing all these things, I decided it's about time for me to do what I've been planning to do, which is to leave the country. And then the pandemic hit. And so I was, in the United States for close to 6-7 months before it opened up. And as soon as it did, boom, I left the country, and I've been gone since. As everybody knows that watches my channel, I was in Colombia for a little over 5 months, and I've been now in Mexico, having moved a couple times here as well. And I'm enjoying that. But that whole COVID thing, can we call COVID a teacher? I mean, for a lot of us, it's going to trigger the F out of us hearing COVID is anything other than anything from, oh my gosh, it destroyed, my family because of whatever, or it literally, is the reason somebody I know died, or I myself had it and was ill, or, all the various negative ways that people could look at COVID, from it being a hoax and a conspiracy to all those. So I know it's a very hard one, but so too is freaking cancer. You think about it. We were told as a world there was COVID, but being told, and it did a similar thing. I remember when it started, I had a video, I talked about this, go back and look, that this was the closest that most people get in their lives ever to be told they have a terminal illness. Terminal meaning one that can't be reversed, they're going to die from this. Because for whatever reason, the entire world instantly became afraid of getting this very deadly virus. And it was a huge, huge learning opportunity for us, regardless of all the other ways we want to look at it. And I had a video, again, not trying to self-promote, but there was a video sort of challenge I gave the world like a year ago in March, saying use this time to find your creativity, and then find that and get bored with it and grow from that, and try to just detach and learn. And then ultimately this thing kept going, and people were working at home, and everything changed on how we order food, and can we travel, and is it okay to go get my hair cut? If I do, what about school? How's the kids doing? Are the kids in their Zoom class? Are they talking to their friends on Zoom? Are they playing an MMO video game online? Are they have they even been out of their bedroom in months? Have I been out of my house now that I work at home? And yeah, that sounds like a bunch of doom and gloom, but that's the kind of thing that a lot of people think of when they think of COVID. And that's the exact kind of place that probably a lot of people currently experience either the two things I did or something similar, any kind of terminal disease, terminal liver failure, needing to have a transplant, and you're on the clock, you know what MELD score means. Or, having some kind of, any kind of cancer, but particularly ones that are, in places that you really don't want them, that aren't as easily resolved, so to speak. Or anything like that. I'm not trying to be special, I'm just saying those are my personal, that's why I talk this way, that's why I say these things. But what if we looked at COVID as a teacher? What if we learned about ourselves? What if we learned about how we, view the information we take in? There's so many ways we got to look at how that even happens now. How many people, at the beginning, even watched the nightly news on television? Certainly over time, the dominant source has become online, mostly mobile and computer type news services, the plethora of non-traditional media outlets. And then of course the regular mainstream ones that have been so divisive in their ways of either representing some facet of society in some horrendous way and the people against it as the horrendous cause, and pick your category and pick your size, or your side, I should say. It's shared. It's this, we're a victim of something and they're the reason why. So we've had that drilled into our minds more so, but what did we learn from that? Did we learn that maybe that even those messages, where are we getting our information from? Why do we believe what we believe? That's something I've been saying for an awful long time. Why do we believe what we believe? Well, first off, we believe what we believe because we see something in the world that we bring back a memory. We've seen that before. We validate it as a fact. That over there is a table. Therefore, it is a fact. That is a table. I believe that's a table. Okay, there's that very simple sort of scientific way of doing it, if you want to talk about the neurology of it. But the abstract stuff, the things like, what does American look like? You know, when I just said that, what did you picture in your mind? And everybody's going to be different. And it's because of those information sources in most cases. Unless, of course, you've you know, maybe randomly grew up in a United States town where you never saw any other kind of American or whatever that didn't look just like you, and I mean physically. You know, and that would be also including that you probably never witnessed television, and so there's probably not too many of you watching. So the image is different. You know, I had a conversation today walking down the street with a man here that helped me. I had lost my wallet the other day. And I was trying to find out, you know, the best place to go to get one, because I didn't want to use the local. I wanted to find out where would be the best place to get a quality, you know, not tourist, you know, I'm in Playa de Carmen, Mexico type of wallet. And the discussion that we ended up having, it ranged in so many ways. From you know, the time that I spent. He asked me about my time in Colombia. It turns out his kids lived in the States, and then it got to the pandemic, and you know, he immediately went into this. Part of it was that it's a form of control, and then part of it was the economic impact. You know, there was no health, there was no attached story to the part of the control, like buy so and so. But again, so he had his own view of it. So I don't know what it has taught him. I hope it's taught him something, but that made me think more about it. Why can't we look at this time, this corona time, and I just mentioned the part of media. What about working from home? What has it been like? What do you do when do you feel like you're at work now when you're just wearing your shorts and your nice shirt because you're in a Zoom call? Or do you feel fake? Can you feel natural like this? Or do you still feel like I'm not really in the corporate thing? Have you learned to be you in that way? And I'm not judging which of those yous is better, but have you thought about that at all? About all the various things. You know, if I need to go to the bathroom's just right there. It's just right there. I don't have to ask anybody. There's no line. I'll go downstairs, whatever it might be. All the dynamics of working at home. Have you been more effective? Have you been diligent about actually doing your work? No matter what time you do it. You can decide you want to do it from 2 a.m. till 9 a.m. You have the freedom to do that. Has that maybe cultivated in you some new form of confidence? That's a form of learning. You've learned now that you can do that. You can even have the discipline to do your work in that thing. And never mind the impact on what it has to your overall attachment to the job. But now you know you can do what you want to do in a time frame that you want to do it, and it'll get done, and you're successful. That's an interesting learning that would have been hard to try to convey to somebody back when everybody was doing a 9 to 5, right? You can only get a hard day's work done if you're at the office. Well, if you look around, things are still flying. There's still airplanes. You hear music going over there. There's countries all over the place that still have living, breathing people in them. So I don't know that there's a whole lot of validity to that argument. And yeah, there could be all this other stuff about all the... Yeah, and this is where we're going to get back to the information we get. There's going to be tons of documentation about why this study says it's that good or whatever. And definitely take that in. I'm not trying to discourage you from we're curious people. Humans are curious. But at the same time, we've got to try to... I feel it's best for us if we try to take all of these moments, and I'm not going to get into all the corona moments because I know I've probably already lost half of you as far as because it's gone for 16 minutes. And I tend to babble. But what have we learned from this? How has this made us better? When we look back years from now, are we only going to think about, oh my God, it was so awful? Because I look back now at the years I've had cancer as some of the most peaceful, healing, grateful times. Despite the fact that when they were happening, it was not fun at all. I mean, not fun. I don't wish that on anybody. I don't wish it on anybody anyway, but what have we learned from this? Let's forget about our egoic judgment of it. Let that go. What have we learned about ourselves here? What has Corona as a teacher done for us?